Hello and welcome to The Round So Far, brought to you by AAMI. I am Riley Beveridge. Unfortunately, we have a longer injury list than Essendon in here at The Round So Far, so I am flying solo tonight. Let's get started though. It is the big story and it is Fremantle getting a big win over Hawthorn. They were 13 points down at three-quarter time, the Dockers, and they ran all over the Hawks in the final term. They kicked 4 goals to nothing. They controlled the play. It was a tough game all the way through this one. Both sides were going back and forth right throughout. There was no side that was ever clearly on top, but Pat Voss kicked that goal, got him back to 2 points, and then Sean Darcy stepped up when it mattered most. A lot of pressure on him right the way throughout the season, and a lot of talk around that two-ruck combination with him and Luke Jackson, but he kicked the goal when it mattered, and Fremantle got the job done late. They were fantastic. It's big implications for Hawthorn here as well, because they've got 3 massive road trips between now and the end of the season. This was the first of them, so they've got a huge test now in order to make the top 8. We will see how that changes the top 9 on the ladder, because as you can see, Hawthorn were in a good spot. They were in the top 4 at three-quarter time, as we see the ladder here of the top 9. Hawthorn were in the top 4 at three-quarter time, and the Dockers were out of the top 8. But look how much it's flipped it. Now all of a sudden the Western Bulldogs go out of the top 8, Fremantle goes in as things stand. And as I mentioned before, Hawthorn with those 3 tough road trips, they failed their first test. They still have to play Adelaide away, Collingwood at the MCG, and then Brisbane away in their final run into the end of the season. So a big job now for the Hawks to even make the top 8. I mean, they're probably going to have to get at least one of those scalps in order to make the top 8. Fremantle, as we said, they were tough right the way throughout the night, and no player epitomised that more than Andrew Brayshaw. He laid 14 tackles. This is him coming off the ground, having copped a massive hit late in this game. He gets the Fremantle faithful up and about. And you'll see him just a minute getting interviewed by Fox Footy with his head completely split open. I can't believe he did this interview afterwards. The Dockers laid 101 tackles as a team. Andrew Brayshaw, 14 of them, along with 29 disposals and 6 clearances. He was clearly best on ground for the Dockers, and he typified their toughness right throughout the evening. Let's get to Marvel Stadium now, where Adelaide got the job done over the Western Bulldogs by 11 points. And that's where we find our Saturday star. It is Riley Thilthorpe. He was fantastic. Adelaide's forward line is firing on all cylinders at the moment, and Riley Thilthorpe showing exactly what they can do when they're on top. 17 disposals, 9 marks, 6 goals. It was the 3rd occasion in which Riley Thilthorpe has kicked 5+ goals in a game this season. So it just goes to show, when Riley Thilthorpe gets on a roll, he is hard to stop. All the plaudits right the way throughout this campaign have gone to Sam Darcy at the other end, but Riley Thilthorpe, I think, is having just as impressive a season as Sam Darcy, and I think he is potentially on the track for All-Australian honours, given how well he has done. We'll get to the Western Bulldogs defence in just a little minute, because there were some question marks over that, and again over the Western Bulldogs' inability to beat a side above them on the ladder. They drop out of the top 8 as a result of that. Let's have a look at how their defence structured up behind the ball, because there's a number of occasions here where a similar pattern emerges. It's turnover, broken tackle, and then all of a sudden, as we see behind the goals, Adelaide's out. So that kick from Taylor Walker goes inside 50, and Adelaide just has loose numbers everywhere running inside the play. They kick a goal as a result of this at the end of this play here, because they've got numbers inside 50. We'll see another example here. Turnover, broken tackle there, skips through the middle, and all of a sudden what that does is it creates space where Adelaide can just loop a couple of handballs over the top, and they've got numbers everywhere. There's a bit of a mix-up in defence there. And this one, not a turnover, but you'll see here, broken tackle initially, the ball comes out. As a result of that Western Bulldogs broken tackle, there's another broken tackle here, and all of a sudden Adelaide are just through. So there's the second broken tackle, numbers everywhere going inside 50, and Adelaide are able to profit from that once again. That was the story of the game right the way through for the Western Bulldogs. And it plays out here. So this is the reason why I think the Western Bulldogs aren't in the top 8 at the moment, because of all of the top 9 sides, and it's a tight race for that top 9. They've conceded the most times of 95+ points in a game this year. So 7 times. You look at Collingwood, they're the benchmark in the competition. It's only happened once all year for the Pies, whereas the Western Bulldogs, it's happened 7 times for them now. So it just goes to show how much of a world of hurt they are in. When they lose the ball, they've struggled to defend turnover right the way through this season. And this was another example of that right there tonight. All right, let's go to the Giants now, because they got a big win over Geelong. They got the job done at NG Stadium, and it was their forward line once again, led by Aaron Cadman and Jake Stringer, that did the damage. Their forwards, with Jesse Hogan, when you add him in, a Coleman medal winner, when you add the likes of Darcy Jones in there, Callum Brown's having a really good season as well. Brent Daniels isn't even in this team, but when he gets back from his adductor issues, he's going to add a new element to that. They are right on song, and they are so hard to stop. There was a bit of talk around this Giants side being a bit vanilla and only getting over the line as a result of their accuracy. But this is what happens when they do get that potent forward movement into this side. They can really hurt sides. So Aaron Cadman, 15 disposals, 8 marks, 6 goals. Jake Stringer, 11 disposals and 4 goals. Stringer's now had multiple goals in 4 of his last 5 games. So it really goes to show just how much of an impact he's having. He came back into this side as a result of being the starting sub. But now that he's back in the side and earned his place as a member of this starting 22 for Adam Kingsley's side, he's really making the most of his opportunity. So 4 goals and really turned this game in the second quarter when the Giants got a run on after quarter time and after a bit of a slow start. Because the Orange Tsunami is back. We'll have a look at some vision here. This is what the Giants want to see, and this is what Adam Kingsley built a game plan on, this transition from one end of the ground to the other. And in all 3 of these examples we're about to see, these are the plays that the Giants want on the ball, running, taking a couple of bounces and delivering inside 50. So there, it's Darcy Jones, who's got the speed to break away. He gets that one done. Finn Callaghan, who's one of their best ball movers. He takes ground with his feet and then can kick it long as well. He takes 3 or 4 bounces here and goes inside 50, and they're able to get another scoring shot as a result of that. And then the last one is Toby Green. So the kick comes out of defensive 50. It's Lockie Whitfield in game number 250. He was back in the side and doing good things as well. But then Toby Green, he's the man they want on the end of this and kicking the ball inside 50, gets to Aaron Cadman, another scoring shot for the Giants. And have a look at this. So this is a remarkable record. Chris Scott's coached against 45 coaches now since he's entered the AFL system. Against 43, he's got a positive win-loss record. The only 2 who have beaten him more times than Chris Scott has beaten them is Nathan Buckley, who went 6 and 7 across his stint as Collingwood coach, and now Adam Kingsley, who has beaten him all 4 times he has coached against the Geelong Man. So that's an incredible record for Adam Kingsley and the Giants. All right, let's get to the MCG, where Richmond got its 4th win of the season against Essendon. And geez, it was a scrap. There was 10 goals kicked in this one, most of them in the last term, where Richmond came from behind just as a result of errors. They kicked the only 3 goals of the game in this final quarter and managed to get the job done. Excluding 2020 in that COVID-interrupted season when there were shorter quarters, this was the lowest scoring MCG game since 1989. So what I loved about this was Jacob Hopper and Tim Taranto get the Tigers back, and that was Jonty Fall who ended up kicking the sealer for them. But then, look at this, there's just calamities everywhere. It starts here with Kazitsky handballing it off and they can't make the most of it. There was another one at the other end when Isaac Kako had a great opportunity to get Essendon back within a kick in the later stages of this game, can't get his body on it. That was the story of the night. There was just errors everywhere for both sides. And as we mentioned, Richmond hangs on in Nick Floston's 250th game to get its 4th win of the season. Taj Houghton made his debut in this one. There's been a lot of raps around Taj Houghton coming back from that ACL that he suffered in his draft year. And he was fantastic, I thought. I mean, he only had the 10 disposals. He kicked the goal. This was a great goal and a great mark that he took here. And he went back and converted it for his first goal in AFL footy. But when you're looking at debutants, it's all about the moments. And I thought Taj Houghton had a lot of moments, like this one here, just toughness to win the ball on ground level and to get the handball over the top, to see a teammate running past. This one, to notice the space in front of him, get on his bike and take that mark. I thought that was fantastic. So Richmond had 8 picks in the draft last year. We know how much of a massive draft it was for them. 7 of them inside the top 28 picks. 7 of them have now made their debut now. So we're still waiting on Josh Smiley to make his debut. He's dealt with some hamstring injuries this year, but that's a great sign, I think, for the Tigers. And the fact now they've got 4 wins on the board is massive for Adam Uza. I think this is a great rebuilding year for the Tigers. Not everything's gone Richmond's way across the course of the campaign, but when it has gone their way, like nights like tonight, they'll savour that and they'll take a little bit of growth in that going forward. Bad news for Essendon, though. They've blooded their 12th debutant of the season tonight. They're 1 away from breaking the record, but Nick Martin looks like he might have done an ACL injury here. That's certainly the concern coming out of the Bombers on Saturday night. You can see his knee sort of snap as a result of that motion there. So he went down with the ACL, or with the knee injury. There's fears that it is an ACL. We can see him hugging his teammates there. A really worrying sign for Nick Martin, who's been one of their constants right the way through the year and has had a fantastic season all the way through the year as well. So our fingers crossed for Nick Martin that it isn't an ACL, that he might have escaped that. We'll find out early in the week. All right, let's get to our AAMI clangers now. Who covers clangers? AAMI does. We need a bit of a lightness after that bad note. And Aaron Norton, he was one of Western Bulldogs' best forwards right the way through this game, but he'll want that moment again, I reckon. And you'll see Luke Beveridge's reaction. He was shattered about that because that came at such a crucial point for them. You don't see this too often. 2 players getting their shoelaces caught up. I'm not entirely sure how this happened with Jager O'Meara and Sean Darcy, but they got their shoelaces caught. And this was one of my favourite moments on Friday night. The game was fantastic, but whatever was going on here in the pool at People First Stadium in the Gold Coast, not entirely sure what that was, but every time it came on the screen, it gave me a big chuckle. That was one of the great moments of the weekend, as was Gold Coast's victory at People First Stadium, because this was probably the biggest game in the club's history, and they managed to get over the line against the Pies. They were 40 points up at one stage in this one. We'll see here, though, Jamie Elliott gets on the end of this, kicks the goal. It drags Collingwood back from 40 points down to be in front. It looked like this was going one way from here. There's 10 minutes to go. It looked like this was Collingwood's. But then in the space of 2 minutes, straight from the next centre bounce, Ben Long gets the free kick, kicks this goal, and then Noah Anderson kicks another. They go bang, bang. And all of a sudden, it's game one for Gold Coast. There wasn't any scores in the game after this. This was such a fantastic effort from Noah Anderson, a real captain's goal. I was actually up on the Gold Coast a couple of weeks ago doing a massive feature on Noah Anderson for afl.com.au, which dropped during the week. You might have read it. I was really fascinated by two players, or a player and a coach at Gold Coast. Jared Witts, who's a player, a teammate of Noah Anderson's, and then Sean Grigg, who's the midfield coach. Both compared Noah Anderson to Scott Pendlebury because they said they've never seen a player manipulate a stoppage on the fly as good as Noah Anderson does. And have a look at this vision here that we're about to see of that match-winning goal from Noah Anderson. So he's pointing there to Sam Flanders. He's saying, you become the sweeper because this is a set play. I'm going to run around the back. So he's pointing to Sam Flanders. Sam Flanders swaps places with him, becomes the sweeper. Noah Anderson gets the ball. All of a sudden, Nick Dacos is ball watching a little bit. He gets caught behind. Scott Pendlebury gets sucked in as the sweeper. Oleg Markov is forced to be engaged, which means that there's a looping handball over the top. It means Noah Anderson can get it back and kick the goal. I wouldn't be surprised. Noah Anderson spoke with Kate McCarthy after the game and said that was a set play. I wouldn't be surprised, though, given what we know about Noah Anderson and given what people at the club told me a couple of weeks ago, if that was something that he just manipulated on the fly and said, I can sense a situation where Scott Pendlebury, as their sweeper, might get sucked into the play. If you hit it round the back, Jared Witts, there's space in behind and I can get on my bike. So that was a fantastic piece of play from Noah Anderson, and it proved to be a match-winning moment for Gold Coast's young captain. Josh Dacos nearly proved the match winner for Collingwood, though. His second half in particular was fantastic. There is Q4 statistics: 16 disposals, 6 score involvements, 5 tackles, 5 intercepts and 2 goals. In terms of a quarter of footy, it might have been the best quarter of footy individually that we've seen all year from Josh Dacos. And I think this is going to give Craig McRae something to think about in the second half of the season, or in the latter stages of the season, because I've never seen him be this inside ball winner, this pure midfielder. He's played a bit on the wing, he's been sucked into going into half back across the course of the year. But I wonder, with Ned Long and Tom Mitchell and their impact being questioned in Collingwood's midfield group at the moment, alongside Nick Dacos and Scott Pendlebury and Steele Sidebottom, whether or not Josh Dacos can go in there in the second half of the year and really have an impact for Collingwood as a pure midfielder, especially going into finals. And the byproduct of that is I wonder if it allows Dan Houston to have a greater role across half back. His influence has been questioned since making that big move over from Port Adelaide last year. So I wonder if that frees up Dan Houston now as well to have a greater influence across half back, with Josh Dacos potentially spending more time as a pure midfielder in the second half of the season. Let's get to Thursday night footy, where Brisbane got the job done over Carlton, and their forward line is really starting to pick up again. So there's been a lot of questions about Brisbane's premiership defence over the course of this season. Their form hasn't always been in tip-top shape, but they've kicked 90-plus points in 6 of their last 7 games. They've won 5 of them. They had 8 players with 2 or more tackles inside 50 on Thursday night. So Charlie Cameron kicks 3 goals, Cam Rayner kicks 2, Logan Morris kicks 2, Kai Lohman, Eric Hipwood, Zach Bailey all kick 1 each. It's going to be a few question marks going into next week's Friday night game against the Western Bulldogs, given Zach Bailey earned a 1-match suspension for striking Nick Haynes, copped him a bit high with a blow to the head. So that'll be a talking point. I'm sure Brisbane are weighing up whether or not they challenge that at the tribunal early next week. So that'll be a talking point as well. But Brisbane's forward line is well and truly back on track. And speaking of the tribunal, one man who is certainly going there is Adam Cerra. We'll get to him in just a little bit, because umpire contact back in the spotlight. Brad Scott put this on the radar last week and said umpires should not be in the corridor. Get them to vacate the corridor, because Lockie Cowan collides with the umpire there. Charlie Cameron kicks a goal. That's 5 minutes into the game. Proves to be a massive moment, and that gives Brisbane an early run on in that game. I agree with Michael Voss. I just think some common sense should come into it there, and the umpire should just be able to blow his whistle and say, look, I've clearly impacted play there. Let's blow it up. Let's ball it up. And Adam Cerra, he's now the first player to be referred directly to the tribunal for 4 counts of making careless contact with an umpire. if he is found guilty of that particular case, I think he's got a case to make that Lachie Neale pushed him into that and that he wasn't at fault there. So I'm sure he'll challenge that. But if he is found guilty, I'm sure he will get a raised fine. I don't think we're going to see players suspended for that if they go to the tribunal for 4 or more cases of making careless contact with umpire. I think it's going to be an increased fine, and I think the club will also be penalised, trying to get clubs to stop coaching that and coaching players from running behind the umpires. I don't think we'll see players suspended for that just yet. So Adam Cerra is heading to the tribunal. All right, let's get to the rest of the round now. 3 more games to finish off round 18. Melbourne playing North Melbourne at the MCG to kickstart Sunday's action. St Kilda takes on Sydney at Marvel Stadium, a must-win game for the Swans if they are to keep their outside finals chances alive. And Port Adelaide takes on West Coast at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide being in some good form of late. That's me. I'm about to have a strep, so I've talked myself silly here. Hopefully we get some numbers back next week. Thanks for watching the round so far. Brought to you by AAMI.